man? What's going on?
Oh, not a whole lot. I imagine there's a whole lot going on in your world.
Yeah, you could say that, but we all good, man. We
Yeah.
good. Yeah, how's things with you? I've seen the
Dude,
writers taking off.
it's been fun. I think that one we did on 411 day is still at least on YouTube, because I've got these things going to Spotify and Apple and wherever else they go too. But I think that one might still be the biggest one.
There you go.
Let's lead off with that.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you about that anyway. That was talking about a community day and that kind of thing that y'all are trying to do. I'm not setting the world on fire with views and listens and stuff yet. Got to be consistent and that kind of thing, and just keep stacking days, which I want to do. But why do you think just some old washed up journalist like me, you come on and talk about that, and it's still the most viewed one that I've had so far. What does that say about Moody to you?
yeah. I think, it validates everything we were talking about with the community support, especially being on 411 day or talking about 411 day and what 411 means. We talked about in our first episode we did how it's really like a culture. It's not necessarily a road, and how the city and community have embodied that. And I think that, you know, I think there's other communities with people on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. But I think our community, like I said, is really invested. And I just think it kind of just, like I said, it just validates our, half of our first episode getting to talk about our awesome people.
Yeah. Well, you and Stuart Floyd are the first two-time, I guess, returning guests. So, y'all got that feather in your cap. And
Yeah.
you know, Stuart's coming off of a as an offensive coordinator coming off of a state championship. I know there are aspirations on 411 for y'all to get there in 5A. How has the preparation been this summer and now getting to put on some pads
Yeah.
finally?
No, it's been really good. A place like, Clay Chalkville that's had, such success over the years, continued success, like their bad years, like a 9 or 10 win season, and they do a phenomenal job with those kids and just continuing to grow their culture. So like on our end, we're going into year three, right? We've had two winning
Yeah.
seasons and successful seasons. So we're still growing, we're still climbing. We hadn't been to the mountaintop yet. And so the biggest thing we've been focusing on is like you gotta you gotta enjoy the journey, or else like when you get there, it's like, what did I just do this for? Because like we ask a lot of our kids. We put in a lot of hours. Like this summer was not easy for our kids. We had them, consistently for 4.5, almost sometimes 5 hours a day in the morning when I didn't check my watch or my phone, and we're getting after it and it's hot. And so, we put in the work this summer, I know, to be successful in the fall, but I love Nick Saban's, like one of his later slogans was outwork yesterday. He started with the forefinger, like the process, and that was
Yeah.
on the shirts and stuff. And then outwork yesterday kind of became a thing. And like I just love that so much because one, if you had a good day, like have a better day the next day because you're trying to outwork it. But then two, you can't rely on yesterday's work. So like for us, we did have a good summer. It was very productive, very efficient. Felt like our kids finally like are understanding like what that looks like for us in our program. And so this fall, we're today's day 5 of like the official fall practice. And, we've had some good days. It's really competitive, which is a little different for me because, you know, typically I feel like in high school, you're gonna have like dominant offense, not so good defense. A
Right.
dominant defense, not so good offense. Or if you're not a good football team, you might not be
Yeah.
great at either, right? But like I feel like it's always like offense just dominates, defense dominates, regardless if you're good or bad. And I feel like for us,
Right.
it's so back and forth. And like as the head coach, I'm so conflicted because um, I'm obviously, a defensive guy, but I love offense. I probably hang out with those in the O staff room more than I do the D staff room. But it's like offense has a big play. I'm pissed at the defense. Defense sack. I'm pissed at the offense. Like I can't ever be
Yeah.
happy. And
Yeah.
like Coach Freeman, he would always, get on us, not get on us, but give us a hard time because like he calls plays. He's the,
Yeah.
quote unquote offense coordinator. So if defense, was having success, he would remind us that he's the CEO and he owns both sides of the corporation. And so that's how I feel, especially with not like calling plays on either side. I've got two great coordinators and just an overall great staff. But um, it's been really, like I said, it's been interesting, right? I go home, my wife says, how was it? So I was like, I don't know. I was like, I think it was really good. Like, man, we made some good plays on
Yeah.
offense. Man, defense looked really good in this period, right? And like, so it's back and forth, which ultimately I can take a step back and know that's good. That's really,
Yeah.
really good that it's competitive. It's not one-sided. Um, because our first year here, man, we had an offense and we were scoring a lot of points. So like practice was obviously that's how practice was a lot, and we were
Right.
grinding on defense, like grinding. My defense coordinator, who is now the special teams coordinator for UAB, John Jones, man,
Yeah.
we were up to midnight, me and him trying to scheme and do stuff with my current defense coordinator, Brandon Campbell, and those guys, and but what happened was we get into some tough games at the end of that schedule. Leeds,
Yeah.
um, Southside, Jasper, Arab, like the four best teams we played, and we were averaging like 50 points a game, and then we go to averaging 20. And so what I found out as a head coach was like, well, we really weren't that good. We were good, but
Yeah.
we weren't great because it always felt like we were good at practice because our defense was so young. We were young. It was a
Yeah.
new system. Um, before me, if you were a pretty good player, for the most part, you played offense. Not everyone, but for
Sure.
the most part, and that's a lot how a lot of schools
Sure.
operate. And
Yeah.
so it was different. And so this year, fall camp, going day 5, I feel like we are a pretty even football team. And man, I've been really proud. We've had some battles and we've had some dudes compete, and we're gonna have some guys. I mean, we're gonna have a lot of guys play, which will be a Thursday night, but Friday nights for us. I mean, we're not 11 guy team on offense. Like it's, looking about 15, 16 on offense and about 18 guys should play on defense, which
Wow.
is how you make the run in the playoffs.
Yeah. Depth. Yeah.
Depth.
Does that
It's
does that
all,
does that competition that's kind of been like, okay, right now it's the defense, now it's the offense. Does that leave you still kind of like you said, it's a good thing and it is, but does it make you like, when game one comes, you get into region play, that kind of thing, does it leave you wondering what you truly have on both sides when you play someone other than yourself?
yeah, I think so. Like I just had this talk this morning with one of my coaches. We have 3 kids on the D line. If we're in a forefront, we've got 3 kids with SEC offer. And that is as rare as it comes in any classification. So as you can imagine, my O line, who I think are phenomenal, they're all 5 starters are back from last year, which is rare,
Wow. Yeah.
um, very rare. But like, there's times at practice where the SEC D lineman shows why he's an SEC D lineman. And you're like, is that because he's really good? Is that like where
Yeah.
are we in that line? And so, like you just said, you don't know until the ball's kicked off against another team, right?
Yeah.
Like we get, your brains kicked in, and you're like, well, we weren't that good, but or you go out there and you're able to run the ball and get some movement and hold and and like hold ourselves up on blocks and do different things. You're like, okay, like it's kind of what I thought. Like you want to be
Yeah.
optimistic in those situations.
Yeah.
Always try to be optimistic. And then, I would rather have the disappointment on Friday night after the game of like, man, nope, not really who we thought we are, because you can grow and get better than going
Yeah.
into it. Oh, we can't block these guys. They're too good. Like I don't believe in that. And if like I said, if I get proved wrong on Friday night, then I'll live with that. But I'm always gonna like
Right.
believe in my kids that we can go and dominate anybody.
Yeah. I wanted to ask this. I think me and you maybe talked a little about this before, but you know, I'm I'm near Moody. Used to live in Moody. Had a cousin that played at Moody.
Mhm.
So we've talked about the program history before and some of the struggles, since Moody's been a program. It just hasn't been great. It's been okay at times, but it's never really been very good. I was looking, let's see, three playoff wins as a program from 1978, when I guess that was first season, to 2021. Y'all got three in your first 2 years, and you've got the only two 10-win seasons in program history. Obvious question, how?
Mhm. I just, that's a great question. I think it starts with our main slogan around here is the belief comes from the work. And when I got here, our kids, I looked at the team, it wasn't near the numbers that we have right now. I looked at the team and I just said, man, these are, good looking kids. I looked at the tape. I said, man, you got Davion Dozier at wide receiver. You got, you know, Blaine Burke at running back. You got all these like playmakers out there on offense, especially that first year. And I just said, like, guys, there's no reason we can't go win a state championship. And I said that like the first time I met the team, and like, they're looking at me like I am just out of my mind. And so I told them that day that I believe it because of what we're about to do. And they didn't know what that meant. They didn't know what those 6 a.m. workout. They didn't really understand like that work, like the belief comes from the work. They didn't know what the work was. They didn't um really understand. Like I truly believe, Coach Freeman is the outwork them all is a deal for them, and that's his thing. And I believe in that. I was raised as a coach in that system, so
Yeah.
it means you're not just put in time. You have to be efficient. But when you if a kid thinks he's better than he is, he'll play better than he is. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I think that's just in psychological, but like where does the belief come from? You can't just tell them, hey, you're gonna go out here and you're gonna go 10-0, you're gonna win every game because I'm telling you that. Like
Right.
they got to dig deep and know where that belief comes from, and that comes from the 5 hour days in the summer, the 6 a.m. workouts. I got basketball players during basketball season. I'm telling them to sleep in. Hey, you got a game tomorrow. Maybe it was the day before or whatever, and they're showing up at 6 a.m. because they want to be a part of the team. They want to work, and we're going from 6 a.m. to 8:15 in February, and then we're coming back in the afternoon and doing speed work. And I just that's where the belief comes from. So the first thing was getting the kids to believe that they were good, that they can win. That
Yeah.
you said you've been around this community a while, like the vibe that was here and it's working its way out was like it's okay to be average or good some years, right? We're gonna be,
Yeah.
oh man, playing a lot of sophomores, 2 years, we're gonna be pretty good, like
Yeah.
that was the mindset. And once we kind of eradicated that from our program, and then like I said, with the 411 being adopted by our other sports, our youth, our middle school, junior, high, all that stuff, like you're starting to see it kind of go away, right? Like a big thing. And this might set some people off, which is it's okay. But the big thing like was like this county championship. And like I was like, what, like they had to explain it to me. It was like, if you beat all the other teams in the county, like you're the county champs. And like the first thing I told the team and in my parent meeting, never forget my first parent meeting, gym's packed. Everyone wants to see like who's this, young guy had like a bleach mullet and what's going on here. And I told them, so we're not here to win county championships. We're here to win state championships. And I think you kind of felt that right there. That sunk in for a lot of people. Like, I no disrespect to anybody in our county at all. But that is not a thing. It is not a thing. I don't. I will never view that as a thing. You have rivals. You want to beat your rivals. If your
Yeah.
rival county, okay, Leeds is in Jefferson County, and
Yeah.
we're in Third County, so like that doesn't really, do it for me. It doesn't push the needle. So,
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
man, like,
It's not a banner. It's a means to an end.
that's it. And so like my junior high, we still have a junior high, seventh and eighth grade, like their football team, like our football team, like I was like talking about to someone in the community about like our young guys and like, oh, we're back-to-back county champs. And I was like, I had them explain to me, and that means they beat four other teams. And I was like, well, we don't play we don't play two of those teams, and because they're 1A and 4A, and then the other two are 5A, but they're in our region. So like, what about region champs? What about,
Yeah.
setting yourself up in the playoffs with home field? What about, and then again, the ultimate goal is blue maps. So like, if you don't talk about it, if you're scared to talk about it, I get it, because like there are certain programs you might look at and be like, it's gonna be tough, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the kids have to have a belief in something. Now, for some schools, that might be making the playoffs, and that's okay.
Right.
Like that's why everyone is different. Every program is different, because you might have a coach that's been working his tail off and he's missed the playoffs by a game or two each year. And man, like he knows that if he makes the playoffs, it's going to set himself
Mhm.
up and change his, trajectory of his program. And so that is a
Right.
great goal for programs. But for us, since the day I took the job, we've talked about one thing, and that's a blue map. And I think going in year three, starting to feel it. The preseason rankings come out, right? Nick Saban calls it rat poison, but your preseason number two. That means somebody thinks you're pretty good. So we need to think that too. I can't run and hide from that. I can't, like, my kids see it, right? My kids see that
Yeah.
kind of stuff all over Twitter. And if I go, oh man, we ain't done nothing, you guys ain't done nothing, that, like, my kids don't respond to that. My kids trust me and I trust them. So when I tell them about, hey, we're going to be ranked in this preseason poll, and the only thing that matters is what are you ranked at the end of the season, is the only thing that matters. So we got to
Yeah.
keep working, stay hungry, and I think my kids, they get it. And again, tough schedule.
Mhm.
Not saying we'll win a
Yeah.
games. I don't know. All I know is today we better have a really good practice. And I I really believe in that daily process, because we can get caught up looking at Gainesville and, oh man, cool. Auburn's running back is going to be a top 50 player in the country. And like, we can look at all that kind of stuff. Like, man, we haven't beat Leeds yet. Like, what are we going to do that week? And I just know that if we focus on today and then tomorrow we try to outwork today, I think we'll be a pretty good football team.
Yeah. Let's talk about that schedule.
Yeah.
Let's start. Y'all are opening with Gainesville. It is on a Thursday, right?
Thursday, August 22nd.
How'd you get Josh and Gainesville to come over? How'd that one work out?
Yeah. So Coach Niblett reached out to me, I had kind of already had our schedule set. Um, think we were uh, think we were opening with Auburn, and then Oxford was going to be that week 5 game. Helena is our region
Mhm.
bye. That worked out great. Me and Coach Busby
Yeah.
got that hooked up, because that's always a tough game to schedule, is that region bye
Yeah.
when you have 17 region. But
Mhm.
Coach Niblett reached out. He really wanted to come back and play a game in Alabama. A bunch of the schools he reached out to were already full. I don't know where are in the list, or if it was reach out to a bunch at the same time. Don't know any of that, but um, me and my wife, we were in the living room, and like everyone's calling. You're like calling other coaches, like, hey, what do you got this week? Hey, what do you got this week? So like
Yeah.
it's like a draft. And so he called, and I told him, I said, let me call you back. And I looked at my wife and I was just like, I think we're going to play Gainesville the first game. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, I think I'm going to do it. And so we called them back. I called the other coaches, and they were awesome to kind of move their other stuff around, and we were able to work it all out perfect. And so, yeah, called them back and said, we'd love to host you guys on, and I said, let's make it a Thursday. Let's get everybody in the city
Yeah.
here. I think we'll have a lot of neighboring communities come out and watch it. It'll be such a fun environment for high school
Oh yeah.
football. And obviously they're phenomenal, going to be phenomenal, have been since he got there. He's a
Yeah.
winner. And we know that. And so really, really excited because you think about going through those 6 a.m. workouts. If you're tired and you're like, I really want to get up, if you need some kind of motivation, you got that first game to look forward to, right? And that's always
Yeah.
important to me, that summer is a grind, the spring's a grind, but when you have a schedule like ours, you can't have an off day. If you have an off day, you can't do it. And so
That's right.
that my seniors wanted it. My seniors didn't know what games I was working on, but they came to me and say, we want to play 7A, whoever we can play, coach. We want the best schedule. We want to play TV games. We want to play all this stuff. And so again, it goes back to that trust. They trust me, well, I trust them. So let's handle our business. And so yeah, so they're coming over and we're really,
It's
really
cool.
excited to host them. Yeah, I think it'll be a great night.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know yet where I'll be Friday night, since we're covering more of kind of over the mountain, whatever.
Yeah.
Most of our teams reside over there, but the fact that that one's a Thursday, if I'm not at some game that I don't know about, I don't have the master schedule for our teams in front of me, but if I'm not at a Thursday game that night, I'm gonna
Well,
attempt to, drive the 15 minutes over and come hang out with you guys that Thursday night.
come on, we'd love to have you. I
That's,
think it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna be a really cool atmosphere. Construction right now, the new school.
mm,
They're not like it's hard to tell where they're at. You can see where they've worked on a little PE gym. Like it's going vertical, and so there's just construction everywhere. Our new competition gym and the field house, we're getting a brand new field house. It'll be a 2-story overlooking the field on the backside of the
wow.
gym. So like
Okay.
all of that you're gonna see, and I just think that's cool. Even for like Gainesville, they're building just the facilities like you've never seen. But I think even
Yeah.
for they're going to say, "Oh, cool! Like this school's investing too. This school's growing too." So it's going to be really fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be a good night. And then just non-region, like you said. So the next week you'll travel to Oxford. Like you mentioned, that week 5, you go to Helena and Auburn the next week.
Yep,
Is that a Thursday game?
the Thursday game. So me and Coach Etheridge
Ooh,
known each other a long time, and we talked about that. He has, I mean, he's a legend, across the state, but in Leeds, especially, he's got
yeah.
family, he's got friends,
Mhm.
and they play on that Friday night. So we wanted to move that to Thursday. Um, it benefits everybody. His people come watch him. He gets to see all his old, Leeds friends, family,
Yeah,
and then obviously again I think you'll get more obviously attendance.
sure.
They're a top 5 7 8 team. They will be a top 5 7 8 team. So
Yeah,
I think if you're anywhere near Moody, you're going to be here on that Thursday night. So it's going to
yeah,
be another really fun environment and just excited for the exposure for our kids, right? I think um, anytime I can get my kids more press, more anything, it's just good, man. Like people don't even realize that the stuff we do on social media, like it's for exposure and it might get bashed by other coaches or whatever, but man, I've got 100 schools that come through and recruit my kids, and I know a lot of them see our social media, so
yeah.
it
Well,
works.
well, that's something I wanted to ask you about. That's a good jumping off point because it does feel like these days there's such like a. You tell me what your perspective is here. This is my 1,000-foot view. It feels
Yeah,
like we're kind of in that like old school. Some of those guys that are maybe getting close to their 25 years or they're beyond it, and then versus more of this new school that is the social media stuff. It's not just rivals and scout like when you played.
yeah,
It's
that's exactly.
everything, and they're on TikTok and all the things. What I'm more curious about, because it's fun and it is meant to be fun, and I'm obviously someone who enjoys doing content, so I'm all for it. But what I wanted to ask you was, people like you said, coaches might see it, other fans of other schools might see it and be like, "What is this? Like, come on!" But for the kids, like does branding yourself, like, like 411 boys y'all have talked about, the standard is the standard, all these things, you know, you see it on social media and you think, oh, it's just a hashtag, it's kind of whatever. But for y'all, is that something that you're preaching that like transcends just like, hey, it's just for social media? Like it's something that goes to buy-in with the guys, right?
100%. And I don't see it any other way, right? I just like our kids, they like that hashtag, that social media buy-in, and like that is all these kids know in terms of like growing up with an iPhone, growing up with social
Yeah.
media. Like we didn't have that. Um, iPhone was my freshman, sophomore year. That was coming out and it was awesome when you got it. And, you internet on a phone for the first time. Like, but now you think about it, like that's funny. But that's all these kids know. And so, like,
Yeah.
bringing that into the culture, like, again, like you said, some older coaches, they just, I ain't going to do it, never done it, won't do it. And that's fine. Like, but these
Yeah.
kids, they're different now and they're raised different. Um, and I think to relate to them, you have to learn and understand like what they like, what motivates them. And, I've heard coaches say like kids are motivated by, a freaking graphic now. And then I'm sitting there in the back of my mind, shaking my head like that. And I'm thinking, well, let's make more graphics. Let's motivate them.
Yeah.
Like we can't change them. They are who they are. And
Yeah.
so if they like the cool graphic that they can post on their Instagram or retweet on Twitter, we're all about that. And again, it goes back to exposure. The amount of college coaches that come through my door, the door right there, because of social media, I can't even put a number on it. I wish I would asterisk because I write it down whenever I get a different school. And I mean, like, man, I just saw y'all stuff on Twitter, coach. I just had to come by. I know y'all got some players. I mean, that's the main line that's said. And so I'm just trying to get my kids life-changing opportunities. I've told you, that's my favorite part of the job
Yeah.
is being in my office right here and listening to the kid get his first offer. Like the explosion of joy running around the room, doing circles, hugging, jumping. Like that's really why I do what I do. And so all the social media stuff, it's very, very strategic. We don't just throw stuff on a wall. I have
Right.
a social media team, which people are like, that's crazy, but it's important.
These
Like
days. Yeah.
why would I not invest in that and make that a priority? And we do social media etiquette classes with our kids. We talk about how to properly do a tweet, how to all that kind of stuff, because like that's what they're growing up with when they get to college, right? And like I've got multiple D1 kids, like, and they're going to go sign an NIL contract. Well, to increase their NIL value right now, what can you do? Oh, well, go ahead and start cleaning up your Twitter. Go ahead and start being very professional in your posts. Make companies and local advertisements want to use you, pay
Yeah.
you to do ads, right? Like people, like kids make stupid money now for just posting a picture of like, like I love this coat, and then
Yeah.
you get paid for it. And so like those are things that we have classes on. All my kids that have signed Division 1 last year, we sat them down and truly went over like what is NIL, what should you expect, like what to do, what not to do, taxes, like because like you can't run from it. The saying that I hear right now the most is when the NIL comes to high school, man, I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm got my years, and like
I've heard it
I
a
get
lot.
I get it. I really do. But all we can do is adapt or die. And so for me right now is getting my kids prepared for the next level. That's a part of it. Like I can't let them go into college and someone throw $10,000 for an autograph sign and them not know what a checking account is and them just have cash laying around. Like they got to know that kind of stuff. So that's something we take very serious. And right or wrong, I feel like it's right, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm gonna prepare my kids for the next level.
Yeah. So not the NIL stuff, but kind of back to mostly just that social media stuff. The other, I guess, I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just asking the other side. Like kids wanting graphics. Put me in this, tag me in that. Promoting. You are trying to sell yourself to the next level. But do you have to, as a coach, like while you are kind of, you're promoting your guys, do you also at the same time kind of have to temper them a little bit, like, hey, don't let this take over. We're still, hey, we're still trying to, we're still trying to win Region 6 here. It's a team thing. It's not just you. Do you have to kind of temper that, and how do you kind of go about it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing you have to sell to your kids is like the more exposure. We'll just use Sydney, my seniors committed to Tennessee. The more exposure Sydney gets and the more tweets with his name, almost 99% of them are going to say Moody High School, Moody, Alabama.
Right.
The more exposure he gets, the more exposure you get. And so it's a one eats, we all eat kind of thought process on social media. Like it's
Yeah.
if we got one bell cow that's just bringing in the schools, bringing in, then that's what you want. You don't want it to be a bunch of just not highly touted, highly graphic players. Like then nobody's really wanting to see what you're doing, come by your school. Like you want to have as much of that as possible, like a blitz. And so anytime our kids get an offer or go on a visit, they know like we're
Yeah.
tweeting it, they know how to tweet it, we're retweeting it, we're getting it out there because that's how recruitment works. Oh man, Arkansas offered this kid. Missouri coach who follows me
Yeah.
sees it. I retweet it. Well, now he's going to say, "Well, is it? What's he doing? Let's offer him." And that, I mean, that's just
Makes
how it
sense.
goes. So if you're not promoting that kind of stuff, then you're behind. But as far as it goes back with like the animosity and stuff, my kids know this. If we're on social media and we're tweeting about offers, I'm
Yeah.
retweeting you. I'm quoted by a newspaper talking about you're going to be really good, this and that. Your tail's going to be held to a higher standard by that much more. And they know that. So
Yeah.
I was tell you, I probably call out Barack Willis in a team meeting almost every day because I'm on record now saying that I think he's going to be a 5 star. I
I
do.
saw
I'm
that.
not, I'm not, I'm not backing away from it. I think he is, and I think he will be. So in the team meeting yesterday, I said, we gonna practice like a 5 star, or we gonna practice like a kid that wants to be a 5 star? And all 98 of his teammates hear that, and they're gonna hold him accountable. And now guess what? He's got to raise his level of play and practice, or he's gonna be held accountable by me because I'm the one that said it. So there's give and take, but overall, man,
Yeah.
my kids they get it. And like I said, they know like, I've got kids that had no offers that might be freshmen or seniors that just love high school football and they'll tweet a video of them doing extra work. They get the same love and retweet from me, our Moody football account, than a kid getting an Alabama offer because whatever that looks like, it's important. And so we're always going to put our kids out there and try to get their names out there.
Well said. So let's talk about this season. You've already mentioned all five offensive linemen back, which is crazy. Like usually, if a coach tells me like, "Oh, I've got three back on the line and one of them
Mhm.
is the center," I'm like, "Whoa, that's awesome." But all five, I mean, how many guys do you have returning on both sides? Just kind of give me the rundown there.
Yeah, so you've got 5 linemen back. We have with that, with the 5 linemen back, there's not just five of them. What has happened now is there's number 6, number 7, and number 8 we feel like can play. Whereas like in the past, when you lose 3, you lose a couple. 6, 7, 8 are the ones that are plugged in. So really, you don't feel great about 6, 7, 8. You might feel good about 6, but high school is just tough. Like you don't just have 15 scholarship O linemen like Alabama. So we're very blessed. We've got other guys like Fish, Big Fish, who's going to get in the mix a lot. Senior Braden Bankson, junior Dagan Medlock. We got those 3 guys that are going to try to get in the mix and play a good bit. And then receiver wise, you have Josiah Dozier and Braden Ryder back. Um, and then we have some young kids, 2 young receivers that played a little bit as freshmen, not a much. didn't have a huge role. That will be in the mix at receiver with Colin Eatman and Elijah Rutledge. And then we got um, two running backs that we had to replace both seniors running backs, and we've got two guys, really three that we feel like can get the job done back there, and Bravis Cave Jr. And with Cameron Meadows, KJ James will be a junior, man, and he's a kid to look out for because I mean he's just productive. When he gets the ball, he gets yards and he does a great job for us. Charlie, obviously our quarterback's back, which is huge. So um quarterback's back, O-line's back, a couple new pieces at the skill spot, which is fine. So what you learn though, in like you if you coach football at any level, like defense is always going to be ahead at the beginning. It's a lot easier to get in a base defense and do different things, make some quick adjustments, whereas offense is all about timing and rhythm. And everyone's got to be synchronized, right? Like everybody from the O-line and their pass protection all the way to the receivers and their routes. Charlie and his progression. I'm looking here to here to here. And then when do I take off? Like all that kind of stuff takes some
Yeah.
time. And so I feel really good about that side. Steven Sigler's another guy. He'll be a receiver. He's a speedy kid. He runs round a 4.3. He's probably one of the fastest kids I've coached. Got to watch him, him and Amon, they both qualified for the 200 this past spring. Amon also was in the 100. And so, watching him run track and getting to see all that, man, it was really cool. And, but yeah, I mean, another kid is Bradley Blaze. He's a senior. He's going to be more of a, he plays, they're all receivers to us, but he's the guy that can get in the box, give us some 11 personnel runs, and then do some different things with him. He kind of like Hadaway #3 was for us last year. So overall, really excited about that side of the ball. But again, it just takes continuity, it takes reps, it takes practice,
Yeah.
it takes timing. And so going against the D line, we were talking about going against the linebackers in the secondary right now. I mean, it's tough and it's hard to have positive plays, but they're doing it and they're getting better and they're competing. That's all I ask.
Yeah. So how about so your schedule then? We talked about the non-region. Obviously, it was 5A Region 6, right? Do I have that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So you've got Center Point's back, Jacksonville's in, then Leeds, Lincoln, you guys, Springville, and St. Clair County. How do you kind of assess the somewhat new look Region 6 this year?
Yeah. I mean, it got tougher for sure. Um, you know, I think Center Point, they were 2 plays probably away from being a 2 seed in that really tough Birmingham region
Yeah.
last year. And, um, Coach Bates does a phenomenal job with those guys, and they've competed. They went from 5A to 6. They competed for 2 years, and now they're back. So I know they'll have a chip on their shoulder, and so they come in, and then you add Jacksonville as a third round 4A team,
Yeah.
and 4A is phenomenal football. Catholic, all those guys, and most of them are up, but that they're a really good football team, and Coach Smith does a really good job over there. And so, you add those two, don't really matter who you lost. Like that's not the important part in terms of like, but those two, they're good football teams. Like they're
Right.
playoff caliber football teams. And so,
Yeah.
in my opinion, the region definitely got tougher. And then obviously you got the other teams that are back, and you don't really know what everyone's going to have, but you know that regardless if we're favored, Leeds is favored, that game comes down to the mindset that you want to take that on with. And obviously, they've had our number for 2 years, and Coach Hood is one of the best in the game. A lot of respect for him, and I mean he's a football coach, and so obviously that's going to be really tough. And Coach Robinson at St. Clair is doing a great job getting those guys going and creating some momentum over there. That's right down the road, and so yeah, I mean it's gonna be extremely tough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's a you get 10 wins again this year against that schedule, then you've done something.
Yeah, but
How
yeah.
do so how do y'all this is only year three, so it's not like there's been some sort of lull. That's not what I'm saying, but like taking that next step. Like I know the focus on one game at a time. I get it, but how do you get to where you get to a semis eventually? You get to a state title. Like what's the journey? How do you get there?
Yeah. So, first year, second round, third year. I mean, sorry, second year,
Third
first
round,
year, second round, second year, third
yeah,
round.
third round, yeah,
Um, and, it's like, okay, well, how do we get past that, right? Like this
yeah,
year, the semis is on Thanksgiving. Last year it was the third round that was Thanksgiving. So you think like, okay, how do you win? How do you lose playoff games? And if you go back and really, really think about it, you got to do two things. I was told this a long time ago, and I still think it holds true. To win playoff football games, I was always told you got to be able to run the ball and stop the run when it's cold. And if you think about it, like that's when the weather changes right after Halloween. That first playoff game is not too bad. Second one, third, fourth, fifth is when it starts to get cold, right? And for
yeah,
us in Alabama, 40, 50, that's cold to us. I'm not saying like it affects us in a way. I think it's more of
right,
the thing itself. Is like when that weather
yeah,
turns, you better be able to run the ball, you better be able to stop the run. And so I feel like our first year, we went up to Arab. It wasn't cold or anything. We weren't able to effectively run the ball and stop the run. They were very physical, well
yeah,
coached, and we were the better team on paper. It didn't show that night because those kids, that was a senior class that had kind of grown there. Like I think it was like a progression. They won two, won five, won seven, won
oh
11, right?
wow,
It kind of like carried that program. And so we ran into them and they took Pleasant Grove to double overtime the next week
oh
at Pleasant
yeah, that's
Grove
right,
and
yeah,
probably easily, I mean, not probably, easily could have won that game. I mean, it was a great game, great high school football game. So then go into Ramsey round three, and for us to stop their explosive pass game, they had, dudes everywhere, quarterback's phenomenal, O-line does a great job. You have to kind of lighten the box, and kind of give them some running situations, and they were able to successfully run the ball for the most part. And then when you get down, you really can't just run the ball, right? That's why, triple option teams, you struggle if you get down, like you don't have an answer. So for us, you know, we're winning in the third quarter. And then as soon as we lose the lead and we start pressing and we kind of get away from the original game plan because the game changes and you have to change with it. So we stop, really attempting to run the ball. Well, that's still your answer. We didn't run the ball, stop run effectively enough early to continue to stay
yeah,
with that. So for us this fall, it's been very physical. These past 2 days in pads, it will be very physical today. And we're going to develop a mentality and edge. And I think it goes back to one of the first things we said is depth. To run the ball and stop the run in November, you better have depth because to make it through 12, 13 games. I'm not saying season ending, but kids get banged up. I mean,
oh yeah,
that goes from week one it don't matter. That just happens. That's part of the game. So you got to have depth. You got to have answers. And so for us right now, we are working on just developing that depth. Would love, my last year at Thompson, I think it was besides the 88 Viger defense, which there was arguments about in the staff room there. I think that was the best defense, ever. I think that with Jeremiah, Peter, Jax, Tony Mitchell, Traquan Fagans, Anquan Fagans, Caleb Harris at Auburn, like Amon, my son, like there were, I mean, there were 8 SEC guys out there and I just think that, and I know I left some off that are playing probably in the SEC too, but that year we played around 18 guys and we were able to keep Jeremiah fresh, keep Peter fresh. We didn't just burn them out, in the regular season, early in the playoffs. And we were able to sustain that. And I think we gave up, ended up averaging like 4 point something points a game through a 14 game 7A schedule. Um, and
jeez,
so for us, getting 18 guys in the mix, that might be a lofty goal. It might end up being 16 when, you don't know until that Thursday night. But
right,
as many as we can get out there that we feel like can go and play against the Gainesvilles and those big teams, those are your guys that are going to carry you to the playoffs. And so
yeah,
um, I think that's really important for us to take that next step. And
Yeah.
again, you have to go back to our core value. If we preach it, we got to do it. And that's the belief comes from the work. So whatever 5A team, we face up, match up with in the playoffs, first, whatever round we keep making it to or not making it to, the work's been done. And that work at that point is the schedule. Right. You made it through the gauntlet, right? If you made it to the playoffs, hallelujah. You made it through the gauntlet. So now what's your belief from? Well, we might not be the best team in 5A, not even close, but we've had the hardest schedule and we played the toughest teams. So there's our work. So let's believe we can go do that versus the rest of the state that's left in 5A.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to lean on that. After Halloween, we're gonna have to lean on that and trust it. And obviously gotta make it through 10 games. Nothing's guaranteed.
Yeah.
But I feel very confident that our guys will find a way to get ourselves in November.
Absolutely. Did you see P Woods this summer squat like 700 pounds?
Did he's an absolute specimen, and I think I saw something where he's up to 319, but when you watch him move, it's like he's 220.
Yeah.
He was the first player, and I hadn't coached a long time, so this might not mean much, but I saw some really good players at Thompson, even at Moody with Dave Dozier and guys like that. But I honestly thought he could have left Thompson and went to the NFL, like a LeBron,
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
they used to go straight to the NBA.
Hmm.
I really did. I'm not saying he'd been an impact player right away, but he's going into year 2 at Clemson. So this would be year 2 in the NFL. He's dominating right now in the league. I
Oh
promise.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was pretty cool to watch. But let me tell you something about Peter Woods. He um freshman always had to clean after pregame meal. So at Thompson, well, Moody, we have a lot more freshmen that we dress out than we would at Thompson. Thompson would have
Sure.
100 plus 10th to 12th graders. So Peter would be, 4 or 5 maybe, and Peter was a freshman and he was starting. And I remember all the freshmen dipped out one day in the cafeteria, and I remember just sitting there with some of the other coaches, and I look over there and I see this future first rounder picking up and mopping and wiping down these tables by himself. And I just never forget. I just never forget that. And I just think, man, like, I mean, we all knew he was going to be special. Didn't really know how special at that time, but man, like that just shows you his character. He's got
Yeah.
great parents, great family, and yeah, special kid.
See, I love stories like that. We
Yeah,
can talk all about him, putting up 700 pounds and what he's done on the field. It's those stories
yeah.
that are just the best that stick with you.
Nobody's bigger than the program. And I use that story to this day for my freshmen. I tell it, first pregame meal we'll have, freshmen stay. And then when all the kids leave, and I say, all right, freshmen, there's a kid named Peter Woods. If you don't know who he is, you better look it up. And, he did what you're about to do. And that's just right down the tables. Leave it better than we found it. And I just think, yeah, it is a cool story. And it's pretty telling on his character.
Sounds like you and Mark and whoever else will be telling some NFL scouts that come spring 2026 as they're
That's
thinking
right.
about who to take in the draft.
That's right. And you'll see my boy Jeremiah a lot this fall for Alabama. He is killing it. Had a great spring. Had a lot of opportunities to leave with when
Sure.
Coach came in, and he everyone knows about the poaching and or tampering, excuse me, the
Yeah.
tampering that goes on in Division I college football, and he's kind of stayed true to who he is and what he's doing. And I think I saw he was running with the ones at inside back.
Okay.
Um, and
Interesting.
so I think, and I you'll see him on Sundays too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let me get you out of here on this. Been asking
Yeah.
every coach. What are you looking forward to the most this fall?
You know, I the anxiousness, just the build up that comes with an off season, especially where we're at. We're, back to back 10 wins. A lot of people think we're going to be pretty good. And like I said, I try to embrace that, right? I could be dead wrong, terrible coach, but I try to embrace that with our kids. And so like the biggest thing I'm ready to see is like, are we going to rise to, you know, the challenge? And like, do we do we falter if things don't go well first quarter versus Gainesville, right? This will be their fourth game at this point, like, and they're a really good football team. Do we respond early? There's going to be adversity in every football game, but especially in that first one, something is going to go wrong. Like, how do we handle that? Did we do enough in the offseason to prepare us for that? And so, like, that anxiousness and anxiety, that coaches feel going into that first game, not knowing this or that, like, I'm just ready for it to kick off and to kind of figure out who we are and
Yeah,
then go from there. I believe, we change our offense and defense weekly because we try to put our kids in position to be successful. So right now, you really don't know. You're going against our defense. Well, our defense does this. This other defense does this. So what do we need to do to be successful? And man, I'm just really excited for that. I love Friday nights in Moody, Alabama. Special, and so I'm just excited to see our people. I'm excited to feel the cold air in the mornings, September, October, whenever that cranks up for us, and head to work early in the morning, and just, again, it's all about the journey. And if our kids keep focusing on that, the day by day journey, and not worrying about the destination, I think we'll end up somewhere pretty cool.
that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing this again,
Yeah,
Coach.
well, appreciate you having me on. You're doing a great job. I've enjoyed watching them.
Appreciate you. I'll see you hopefully August 22nd. We shall see.
Let's do it. I'll see you then.
Appreciate it.
Yep.